everyone, welcome to another Procreate tutorial. This is the drawing that we will be completing in today's video. If you are new here, I mostly post Procreate tutorials, so if that's something you are interested in, go ahead and subscribe. Otherwise, before we get started, the only thing that you will need is the color palette, which I have in the description below. It's totally free to download. Just follow the link and then download it and open it up, and it'll automatically import all the colors that we're using into Procreate so that you can use them as you follow along. So go ahead and grab that and then come back and we will get started. First things first, we will go over our canvas dimensions. The dimensions that I'm using today are 10 inches by 10 inches at 300 BPI. And by the time that we are all done with the drawing, I used 25 layers. So that's how many layers you need at least, if not a little more. And if you aren't allowed that many layers, you can lower your DPI a little bit until you have the right amount. If you don't know how many layers that you have available, it does show it right when you're creating a new canvas and you're entering your dimensions. Otherwise, if you already have the canvas created, under this same menu on the left here, you see the layers option, and that'll show you how many layers that you have available. And then the color settings that we're using is the second RGB color profile on the RGB list. Okay, we are on the first layer here, but before we get started, this is what our color palette looks like. It's really simple. We just have some background colors, the trees, and then the road. So it's going to be a pretty simple one. So first, let's grab this first color on the first row, and on layer 1, we are going to drop that to fill the entire background. Okay, so then right away we are going to get started on our forest. So we are going to actually end up drawing one tree, and then we're going to make some duplicates of it and make some changes as we go. So open up the layers menu and add a new layer on top of our background layer, and then go into our color palette, and we are going to select the first color on the second row. And then for our brush, we are going to go to the airbrush menu and find the hard airbrush. That will be the brush that we will use for the trees, and set the size to 30%. And we're just going to draw a quick two-sided shape like this, like a little pointy shape for the main part of our tree. And then click on edit shape and just kind of adjust it, make sure it looks pretty straight up and down. And then we're going to connect it on the bottom. This doesn't have to be perfectly straight or anything because it'll end up getting covered up. And then we are going to fill in the tree with our green color. And then on the layers menu, add a new layer above this one. Go to your color palette and select this white color, the last color on the last row. Drop your brush down to about 10%, and let's make a straight vertical line. So hold down your pen and touch your finger to the screen to make it perfectly vertical. So this is just going to be kind of a guide. We want it right in the middle of our tree shape. And we're just going to use it as a guide. So we are going to go back to our layers menu and go back to our tree shape layer while we leave this layer active so that we can see it. And then what we're going to do is start doing the cutouts on the tree. So we're going to grab this pen tool, click on freehand, and make sure it's just on add, no color fill or anything turned on that menu. So using the pen tool, we're going to draw some little shapes that we're going to cut out of the tree. So the first, we're going to make 2 dots underneath this vertical line here. Make a dot outside the tree, up, and then back over to the center, so that we've kind of selected a little shape in the tree here like this. So the lines that are going towards the outside of the tree are going to be slanted downwards just a little bit, kind of like the tree branches would be. But then after you select the shape, you are going to click the arrow button and then zoom out a little if you need to drag this part of the shape off the screen. So this middle part just acts as a guide because it'll kind of cover up those lines back there, but we just want to make some little cutouts. We're going to vary their sizes and shapes, and we'll make some of them closer together, some of them on the left side, some of them on the right side. So we're just going to do this all the way down the tree. As you'll notice, I do have to keep zooming in and out, so I have to zoom in when I use the pen tool because if I'm too far away, it doesn't quite catch on where I'm trying to click. And then I have to zoom out so that I can drag the shape off the screen. But again, just make sure that your first points line up with this guide that we drew so that they're behind it. And then yeah, just make them facing downwards on each side like tree branches would. But go ahead and take your time to do this, and then we'll move on when you're ready. Okay, I feel pretty good with that for our tree. So what we're going to do next with this is we are going to go back into our layers menu, find the white guide layer that we have here, click on it and turn on alpha lock, and then grab this green color again, either by holding down on the screen or it's the first color on the second row of your color palette. And we are going to fill in that line. You can drag the color in, or you can use your brush to color over it since alpha lock is turned on to make it all green. Then go into your layers menu, and using your two fingers, we are going to drag these two layers together so that they become one layer, and that is our tree. Okay, so now we're going to start kind of setting up our forest. So we are going to just drag this one over to the right a little bit so it's on the right side. So just click the arrow tool and drag it over. And then we're going to go to the layers menu, make a duplicate of it, and then click on the arrow tool and move it over even more, maybe up a little bit. Then we're going to go and make another duplicate and click the arrow tool, and this time we're going to click flip horizontal on the bottom there to kind of make the tree branches go in a different direction. Drag that to the left side, make another duplicate, drag that over, maybe down a little, maybe flip it again so that it's going the opposite direction. So then we're going to make another duplicate, and we're going to this time size it down. So we have 4 that are that bigger size, and now I'm going to make 4 that are a little bit smaller. So I resized that one down and then made a duplicate of that so that I can make some more smaller ones. Put some on the right side, some on the left side. Again, maybe flip them horizontally every once in a while so that they're just all facing random directions. If you ever have one that ends up going off the screen, you actually want to make a duplicate. You don't want to make a duplicate of that one because that part of the tree is going to be cut off. So find a different one to make a duplicate of instead. And so we're going to make another duplicate here, and we're going to resize this one even smaller. And again, just kind of go back and forth, flip them every once in a while. But at the end here, we should have about 12 trees of a few different sizes, and we might end up adding more. Where they line up on the bottom doesn't really matter. We're going to end up covering all of that with the road. So just kind of disperse them however you like. I like them to kind of come to a point in the middle here where we're going to be able to see more of the sky. But kind of move them around until you like where they're at. Okay, so now we're going to add some more different green colors to some of them to give it some depth. So let's go into our color palette and select the second green color on the second row, and we are just going to drag and drop that onto some of the trees. It's kind of hard to see where they're at, so select one of the layers on the list, and then if you click the arrow tool, it'll put a little grid around it so that you can see which tree you're selecting so that you know where to drop the color. And then let's just do, since we have like 12, we're going to do 4 of each color. So then let's go into our color palette and select this last color on the second row, the darkest green, and we're going to just recolor some of the lighter ones. Another thing to keep in mind when filling out your trees is that on the layers menu, you can move the layers around to situate how they are on top of each other. If one tree you want to be behind, you can go to the layers menu and drag that layer below some others to also kind of change up the look of your forest. So here I filled in this last one and it's kind of blending with the background one, so I'm just going to move it over a little bit so that we can see it better. Okay, so when you get your forest kind of looking how you like, feel free to move some trees around, recolor some of them. But right now they're a little bit too high up on the canvas because we need more room in the sky, and then we need the road to go over the bottom of them. So I'm going to go and select every single one of these by sliding right on all of them in the layer menu. Use the arrow tool, and we're just going to kind of resize it a little bit too, since we're going to add this circle around the outside. And we're going to drag them a little bit lower on the canvas here so that the road will go over them. Again, now that I see how they're looking, I'm going to kind of make some more trees here. I'm going to duplicate this one, add another one to the outside edge here so that they go up a little higher on each side. Just going to kind of mess around and fill it out a little bit more. Okay, and then on the layers menu, I'm going to select every single one of these trees again. And then we're going to click this group button so they're all together. If you click the arrow, it'll condense them down. But then we can click the arrow, we can move them all at once, but then it still leaves our layers open so that we can make more duplicates if we want to. So let's move them down about where the road's going to be. You know, the road's probably going to cover the bottom like quarter of the canvas. But I think I want a few more trees, so I'm going to again go back into my layers, open that up so that I can see all my trees and make some duplicates of some of them, move them around a little, resize them if necessary, but I just want to make it a little denser, this forest area. So I mean, that's what we're spending most of our time doing, is just kind of getting our trees to look how we want them to. Again, maybe mess around with where they're placed on the layers menu, moving them up and down so that some trees are behind others. Okay, and when you are happy with the way your forest is looking, we are going to go in and add the road. So when you are ready for that, we will open up the layers menu, and we're going to condense all these trees down so we don't have to look at them all, and then add a new layer on top of the group of trees, and then go into our color palette and select the first color on the last row, and we are using our hard airbrush like we were before. Size doesn't really matter, but draw a line across the screen horizontally, hold your pen down at the end so it turns into a line, and then touch your finger on the screen to make it perfectly horizontal. And then go ahead and click edit at the top, and you can drag your line up so that it covers the bottom of your trees, whichever ones are showing. You don't want any of them to show. And drag the gray color below the line that you drew to fill in that bottom part of the canvas. This is again why we left all of our trees on separate layers, so that we can still move them around even now if we need to make sure that we can see them a little bit better since the road is there now. So go ahead and adjust any of your trees if you need to. And then on the layers menu, condense your trees again, and we're going to find our road layer, and we are going to add a new layer above that layer. And we're going to go to our color palette and select the second color on the last row, And using our same pen at about 30%, we are going to draw a line across the screen again. Again, touch your finger down to make it perfectly horizontal. And we want it right towards the top edge of our road as kind of the paint line on the road. On that same layer, grab the third color on the third row and do the same thing, making another horizontal line across. Touch your finger down to make it perfectly straight. And we want this one to be about halfway between in the middle of the gray section that we drew earlier. And then we are going to use our eraser tool, make sure that's also on the hard airbrush, and we are going to draw with our brush about 80%, almost as high as it can go. We're going to draw some eraser marks through this white line, and we are going to hold our pen down at the end to make it turn into a perfectly straight line each time, and touch your finger on the screen so that it's perfectly vertical so that our line isn't all wonky. Just kind of try to space these out pretty evenly. You don't have to be too precise. Some of them will get covered up with the circle at the end. Thing we're going to do is draw the fence around the road. So we're going to go into our layers menu and add a new layer above the trees but below the road layers. And using the same white color that we have, we are actually going to use the selection tool, turn it to rectangle and turn on color fill. And we are going to draw a little skinny vertical rectangle right next to the road here as our first little pillar of the fence. Then go into the layers menu, make a duplicate of this layer, click the arrow tool and turn on snapping and magnetics, and then drag it across the screen to the left. And it should stay pretty in line with your other ones. If you're careful, make another duplicate and do the same thing. So then we have 3 across the screen here. Then go back to the layers menu and use your fingers to drag these 3 layers together so they're all in the same layer. And on that same layer, we're going to do the same thing with the selection tool, but this time we're going to make some horizontal lines. We're going to make them a little skinnier, and we just need 2 of them. So we're just going to make one on top of the other. And that is our fence. Okay, just a couple steps left. The next thing we're going to do is add the circle around the entire canvas. So we are going to go into our layers menu, add a new layer on top of our very top layer, and using the white color still, we are going to use our hard airbrush again, and we are going to draw a circle on the screen. So draw in a circular shape, hold your pen down at the end, touch your finger to the screen to make it turn into a perfect circle. Make sure none of it is going off the edge. And then with snapping and magnetics turned on, click the arrow and we are going to drag it until it's in the very center of the screen. You'll see a yellow vertical line and a yellow horizontal line. And then when you have it in the right spot and you like the size of your circle, go ahead and reshape it a few times if you want and just again drag it into the center. But when you have it the way you like, go ahead and on that same layer, drag the white color towards the outside of the circle to fill around it. Lastly, we are going to add our clouds to the background. So in the layers menu, add a new layer above the blue background layer, below all the trees and everything. And with the same brush and same color, we're just going to make some little angled shapes coming from the side of the canvas. So start on the outside, make 2 lines, going back outside again, like this, let them snap to straight lines and then fill in the shape. And since it's going off the edge, you shouldn't have any issue filling it in. And just make a few of them of varying shapes and sizes and distances in the background. And that is it for our drawing today. I hope you had fun. If you did, go ahead and give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you want to see more tutorials if you haven't already. And if you want to share your finished drawing on Instagram, I would love to see it. So go ahead and post it and then tag me in it so I can check it out. And while you're there, go ahead and give me a follow so that you can see what I'm working on next. Thanks so much for watching.